I think that's, you know, we invite you out into this place and um, I just want to come this place, Father. And I just, something that was laid on my heart was just that he just released doubt and fear and just cast all of that out. And it's just such a powerful time when you can just utterly surrender to the Lord and just be in His presence and just allow Him to just completely fill you and not have anything but Him on your mind. And it's so difficult for us to get there because of this consuming lifestyle that we have. Um, and so I don't want to let a moment go by. Chad came to me and he made me realize that it's literally was like a week since the launch last year. That's a year. Um, yeah. And I think when you have people that press the vision, or come on board the vision, and it's a year later, you just realize there's so much that you can do, but also that you're not going to do it alone. And I think I'm just really, really grateful for those that have journeyed with me in this last year and that will continue to journey. And I was actually thinking about it this week, where's really being part of the team. And surprisingly, it's going to be, I was laughing actually, because resilience to faith is all about females. But I'm going to call up only me now that has been behind the scenes for this entire year. So I spoke to Chad, and Chad said, yes, just come forward, Chad. I just want to say, and then I spoke to Jarrod, and Jarrod said yes. And Jarrod's busy taking pictures, but he's going to come up now. And then Jerome, I spoke to Jerome, and he said yes. And I think for me, I'll leave my brother for last, but I want to also call Bertram. And I think it's so important. Yes, Bertram, please. Okay, just wave. Everybody just look around, and then Bertram's going to wave. To wave your hand, please. Everybody can say thank you so much. And before we had it here at church, we were having it at Jumpstart. It was a coffee shop and a dance. And so Bertram said yes to the vision in giving the space to carry out what God has laid on my heart. And I must also, my dad's not here, but he faithfully sits up, just like, what do I need to do? You know, and I'm the only girl who's like, yeah, what do I need to do? And I can just tell my dad what to do, and he'll do it. It's amazing. And then I sort of call my brother up, and we've been teaming God Inspiration since 2017, from our first book up until now, and we are still continuing. And it's so crazy to think that it's just me behind the scenes that they are my anchor. Every time I say, hey guys, can we do, are you in? And then to say yes to the vision. And I also want to say each and every one of them have different testimonies how God has accelerated certain things in their life. And I think that's so powerful because when we walk in obedience and when we step out and say yes to community, you just realize it more and more that there's so much power in unity and coming together. And so when we come together and we come in agreement, automatically there's an acceleration that happens in our lives. So I just want everybody to just clap for them, and I just want to thank you. I'm just going to just sit down. um, so at this end of this year, okay, before I go on, it's just crazy because I just need to say thank you to the wives as well for allowing me to just say yes and have all the times. I think it's very, very important for that. And I think this is the first time, I think it's only Kevin and Samantha that's not here. But Natalie, can you just stand down, Mom? And Michelle, if you can stand. Okay, is Kay still coming, right? Okay, she'll come later. Michelle, can you just stand? So, yeah. So I think it's actually so beautiful. There's only almost three ladies missing, but Karen's coming later on. Is that these are the ladies that are actually in the book. Unfortunately, the book is sold out. Praise the Lord! Yeah! And these are the ladies that are in the book. So Michelle is in the book, Nance at the back, a darling friend, Shireen, my mom, myself, and then Kat will be here. And it's so awesome just to have them in the room. And so please, if you are here for the first time, go and say hi to them, chat to them. I think it's an amazing opportunity just to connect to the people. So much ladies. And so going into the last session for this year is winning at life, or winning in life, actually phrase it like that. And for me, this is Michelle's chapter, and the title is just winning. And it's more towards the end of the book in terms of, claiming victory. And in this year, just got me thinking in terms of, when someone's like, yo, you're winning at life. Oh, what does it mean? You're winning at life. And so I just thought it was just so profound at this stage in this year. And I think for everybody, it was a different kind of year. I don't know, whether it's financial, whether it's doing something new, whether it's stepping out in faith. Doesn't matter. There's been so many different aspects of one's life that has just been on a roller coaster. And so for me, the biggest thing that I've learned this year, that winning in life doesn't mean success in terms of a definition of what the world prefers it to be. And so success for me has always been about achievements and accolade. And so we run after that achievement and accolade time and time and time again. And so when those things aren't there anymore, and then we feel like, well, I'm losing. And so in life, for me, there is no losing. With God, there's only growth, there's only stretching, and there's only newness from that. And so we're just really going to go into such a great session with 3 individuals. I think I'm actually going to start with Michelle. Actually, no, I'm going to start with Shireen. I'm going to do it in order, and you're going to know why. So, 2015, I think that was my first outreach, and I had a fundraiser here in the church, and Shireen danced. I don't know how, but she danced at that fundraiser that I had. So I'm going to ask Shireen to come up first on the couch. And it's crazy how Shireen and our paths has crossed so much over the years, that in this last year, that we've just really grown, in terms of friendship. But I think I must just say thank you to her, because I'm busy finishing my thesis, and she was the one that's like, girl, just finish it. You gotta finish it. I know that great marks, and I'm gonna come back and back and back. And so she's been such a full of strength in terms of that journey with me. And so I say Shireen was at the first fundraiser I had for the outreach, and on the outreach I met Michelle. And so Michelle, you can come. And so Michelle and I have been friends for 10 years. And it's been so crazy because we met in Joburg. And spent 2 weeks in Mozambique, Swaziland and Mozambique. We have a great laugh because on our way back in South Africa, we were in Swaziland and it was so cold. We all had our own tents and we were like, listen, can we please check up in the tent because it's just so cold. And we just like, but what's so beautiful is that we started a friendship that doesn't matter about distance or time. And I think the beautiful thing is that we also had rocky ups and downs in our friendship, but it's so amazing how the Lord just brings true friends in their tough times and bring it to life. So I'm just thankful for your friendship. And then come 3 years, I met Mr. Bright. I met Bright through Kaylin, which is one of my really good friends also, she's in the book. And finally, was it Poets in Autumn? What's it? Poets in Autumn? Yeah, we met at an event. Yes, you can. And Bright stole the heart of Caitlin. And I was Caitlin's tag along to all of the events while she was getting to know Bright. And this last year, we've really gotten, this last few years, we've really gotten to to know each other, both on a ministry, on a private, and on a business level, which is really been amazing. And all three of them has such an anointing on their life in terms of their walk with the Lord. So I'm not going to tell them, they are going to tell me about themselves. And then I'm going to ask Jarrod to come up. So for those of you the first time, Jarrod is not an MC, we call him the truth seeker. And he just asks that up questions, but he really gets that to where we can just go in deeper. And so this is really just such an authentic space. And I think one of the biggest things with Goddess Creation, even though we publish in ours, is about breathing life into stories. And that's just really our aim, is that in every story there is a life. And we just want people to hear each other's stories.
Quick disclaimer, I was never really going to get out of this, however you sliced it. My mother's in the book, my sister's in the book, my wife is in the book. So I was kind of always going to be part of this just by osmosis, right? And that's the thing with God, man. He doesn't, if you're being resistant, he'll put people in your circle that will soften you in the right places. And if you ask anybody in my circle, I say no a lot. I say no to a lot of things, except to the things my mother, my sister, and my wife asked me. And so when this came about, the conviction to say no was taken away just automatically. And here's why. Because it's only your first time for the first time. After that, it becomes a learning. And then after that, it becomes a habit. And after that, it becomes a lifestyle. So I'd like to encourage all of you today, if you're here for several times, you followed us, if you joined along, thank you for partaking in our lifestyle. If it's your first time, let it be your first time. And let that go into your lifestyle. So on that note, let's get into the stuff. Let's get into the stuff. I was not gonna wear a blazer, but then Bright showed up with a blazer, and I was like, man, you know what I'm saying? So thank you for stepping up my standard. I really appreciate it. I also just wanna, can we just make some noise for the worship?
Yeah.
My wife and I skipped church this morning because we were traveling, and so thank you for bringing the anointing and the presence here. It was palpable. I really appreciated you and I enjoyed it. My spirit was rejoicing, so thank you for your gifting and sharing it with us so effortlessly. Enough of my banter. I've spoken enough. Guys, welcome to On the Couch. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I am really excited about the segment. Say what the Lord needs you to say. I emphatically encourage you to do that, because there are people, not just here, but out there in YouTube land, that are going to hear something. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe years from now. And they're going to be like, Chelsea, right? Shireen said to Steve, but for even change my life. So as an accomplished person, and I was going to categorize that into a dancer, an academic, just an overall nice person, but like, it's so much more than that, man. Your spirit being really shines through in everything that you do. And I'm very curious to find out from you, Shireen, what does winning look like in your world?
Thank you, Jarrod. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shireen mentor, and we should start off by saying that I'm a scientist, I'm a mad scientist, and I'm also a creative. So I'm quite an eclectic person. I am a lot of things at once, and that can be quite confusing to a lot of people, okay? Because it's not like I'm not a by the book kind of person. But in terms of your question, are you asking me like about winning in terms of a world standard, or in terms of just?
I leave that open for you to interpret the way you need.
Okay. I think let's talk about it in terms of the world standard first, right? And so this is actually a cool thing to do, because I don't usually stop and reflect about certain things. You just go through life and don't take a chance to just look at life in retrospect to find perspective. And when I was thinking about winning in terms of the world standard, I thought about the hallmark of life, okay? And so the hallmark of life is to live or to die. It is to compete or to cooperate. And it's also to procreate and reproduce, right? And so if I look at the world standard and I look at just cooperating and competing, that's the world standard of winning. Okay? So you cooperate with an institution or an organization to meet a certain standard or to meet certain goals or visions for that institution, right? Or you compete with a bunch of candidates in order to be positioned somewhere, but they're all external. So winning according to the world standards to me is very much external work, okay? External validation, external affirmation. But I think in terms of winning for me, I could give a standard for winning. I would say it's to walk into a place and whichever state you find that place in, be it really great or really bad, you leave that place in a better state. Okay? And in order to do that, you have to be extremely purposeful about it. You have to know what the purpose of God is on your life. Okay? You have to, there's a certain amount of peace you have to have in order to be purposeful in that particular place. Okay? In order to bring about transformation. Okay? So when you are purposeful and you are allowing God to move, you also allowing Christ to rise in you. And what did Christ do? Christ was, at first glance, probably liberal, but he was purposeful. And he walked into each instant, whether it was good or bad, bringing about transformation, bringing about change. And so for me, I would say really, in that sense, would be being purposeful about
change.
change.
Okay. Would you mind just passing the mic to Michelle? Thank you so much for that, Shireen. Michelle, I want to ask you a question based off some of the commentary that Shireen provided us with. So she was saying that winning is about being purposeful and executing a certain change according to that purpose. Finding a place that was in a state, and by the time that I leave, that place is being better. A couple of years ago, you made a very purposeful decision to leave this country and hold a home somewhere else. Has that process and that journey of winning, that purposeful change, panned out the way you thought it would? And if it hasn't, what victories, what victories and lessons are you taking from the experience?
Yeah, sure. Well, great introduction there. I think that landed a lot super deep and landed with all of us. But I think the thing that resonated the most is being purposeful, but also goal driven. And if you look at it from the world standard, it's being a goal and making a lot of money, and we live in a very consumeristic culture, which is happiness is defined by how much you have and all the holidays you've taken and the cars you drive and all that. But I think the principle there in being goal-driven also applies to the kingdom of Jesus Christ, and that he was goal-driven. He was about his Father's business. So it's everywhere that he went with a purpose and a goal, and that was to bring the kingdom of heaven down. So the idea is the same, but obviously in the world standard, whatever God has created, the enemy will corrupt. So it's not a problem, and it's really important to have goals in life, because if you don't have a goal, then you're going to be walking around aimlessly, and that's where, what's that old saying? It says that Satan works with idle hands. There you go. That's the one.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, so it's really important to have goals, but just always ensure that those goals are Christ's goals for you and not your own. But on that note, I always had a stirring and a desire to leave South Africa, not so much in search of a better future, because I didn't enjoy the country here. It was just more of a pulling of where God was calling me, but where exactly he was calling me was very different to what I had imagined for myself, which is often the case. So my family knows that I'm obsessed with everything Latin, and Kelly calls me Chica. Because when we met, it was just all about the Spanish music, and so that's a bit of an inside joke. But anyways, I was on the goal and the purpose of going to South America, and that's where I was going to go, and nothing was going to stop me or change my mind. But every time I was moving towards there, it just all the roads and the doors were just blocked and closed. And sometimes that happens, especially when you belong to Jesus. You can try and make certain decisions and stuff, but he comes after you because you belong to him. So thank God for his grace there. But anyway, so I was really on the purpose of going to South America, and God was closing the doors, and then all of a sudden, I got a call from my pastor, and he said to me, randomly, he just said to me, don't go somewhere that's going to cause you to lose your spiritual inheritance. And that stopped me in my tracks because sometimes, and Kelly's met our pastor many times, sometimes he'll be speaking and it's not him, it's just the Spirit of the Lord speaking through him. So that definitely stopped me in my tracks. And I said, okay, well, God, I'm listening to you now. What should I do? What do you have for me? And then he laid it on my heart to go to Australia, which was definitely not my idea because I thought it was a very bland vanilla country. Definitely far from the Latin Peninsula spice I was expecting anyway. So I ended up going to Australia, listening to the Lord, and he opened up the doors really quite miraculously, so I just knew it was his favor over the whole experience. But I ended up moving there at the start of 2020, and no one knew COVID was going to happen. That caught the world by surprise. So in my mind, my life was going to look a certain way in Australia, and it definitely did not. So I was going to come back in 6 months' time to visit family, get winter clothes, and then it ended up being almost 3 years later that I could come back to visit because of border closures and all of that. But anyway, so in that time, especially that first year that I was there, it was an intense year of stripping, in terms of God stripping everything off of me that didn't reflect him. And because of the lockdowns, I spent a lot of time alone in my apartment studying online, which is ironic because I immigrated to study online. But I spent a lot of time alone in my apartment, just in the presence of the Lord. And he really started to address all the things in me that didn't honor him and that I wasn't even aware of, or that you're blinded to, because that's often how sin operates. But anyway, and he was preparing my heart for the next season of my life, which was meeting my husband in Australia, who's here today.
Husband, please stand up. Please stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, meet your husband. And once like that, you go somewhere else to find out old people, and they'd be like, oh yeah.
It was so funny because he's a boy from Benoni, which is near where I grew up in Johannesburg. So we ended up meeting through various Australian friends in Australia in a very small town. So God works in mysterious ways. But I think the original question was, does living in Australia, immigrating, look like how I expected it to look like? And it definitely doesn't. And it's so much more and beyond what I could have ever thought of. And that's exactly what God does. I mean, I went with the idea of winning in the world standards. But at the end of, especially that first year, I really, and I get emotional, sorry, I'm a bit pregnant, so.
That's almost like my small part. Yeah, I'm a bit pregnant.
Sound pregnant, so a bit hormonal. It's bad. It's the winning.
I know you're winning.
But at the end of the year, I ended up really discovering who God had made me to be and not who the world had turned me to be. And that was more transformational for myself than anything else.
Right.
So I'm very grateful to the Lord for that whole experience. And I think through that all, it's winning has become the ability to really hear from God, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's it. That's the goal. That's.
That's beautiful. By the way, congratulations. Just all over. Wow. You know, there's this thing that people do where a woman starts showing and then upper stomach, that's the custom. And I personally hate it because I've never gotten that upper stomach. I've do it with my wife, no, that's my wife. So congratulations. Very well done. I'm sure it was mighty effort. Enough. Is that the appropriation thing? Okay. I'm with you.
Tem negócio.
Brian, you have also gone through a massive life transformation, and it's so ironic that they are talking about starting a family. You've just started a very new family,
Like,
very
yeah.
nice family.
8 weeks old.
8 weeks old.
So,
8 weeks old. Huh?
ja,
8 weeks old.
ik vind het ja.
The mere fact that you are awake right now is amazing for me. I know the Lord is working in your life because you are here with us of lucid mind, your
you, Jerrod.
inspiration. And that's how I know God is alive. So for me, one of the questions I want to ask you is around that.
Ja,
And then you start out courting your wife.
ja.
You guys didn't get married. And then you got this plan. You know, like Michelle was talking about, we have this plan, we're gonna do these things.
Ja.
And then God blesses you
Yes.
with equal parts of you and your wife in the form of a person.
Equal parts. It's more like me though. It's like now I think there we go.
Has that blessing, and I know it's 8 weeks, it's still fresh. Has that blessing and has your household dynamic still a whole lot what you thought in your mind was the plan that God had for you?
Jarrod, that's a deep question, eh?
We're not here to talk light stuff.
Well, I think let me start off by saying, following, well, thank you for the opportunity and hello, Almo. So, I think firstly, after we got married, let me start over there. Myself and Kay then decided was now to moving to Wellington, that's where we live. We live in Paarl and we moved to Wellington. Because the whole picture was that we were, before COVID, we planted a campus in Wellington itself. So we decided then that when we get married, someone move in Wellington and then pastor the campus that's there. And we got married 2021 August, and then 29th of August, and 23rd of September, that's when we heard that the company that I used to work for is actually going to close down.
Wow.
So that's like less than a month of being married, let alone Levi still coming. Then we took time and just fasted and prayed and asked the Lord, listen, that's all that we have. Less than a month married, what must we do? And what we got was that create time. I was asking like, Lord, how do you create time? And then one of the answers I got was that you then work for yourself. That's one of the ways of creating time. Then I asked Lord, what must I do? Then back then I was wanting to say, well, 2020, prior to that I worked for South African National Parks as a quantity surveyor. So I've been doing that for a number of years. And that's something I was anyway earmarking to go into. And then I got fast-tracked into thinking I'm going to start a quantity surveying business. Fast forward of the brand. Then we got to a point where the company truly closed down. And then I thought, I'm going to go into QS, or quantity surveying is called this QS, that's what we call it. Then the plans changed. Literally in between there, we literally took over the company that closed down. The CEO gave us all of the IP of the company, and then we were able to actually start a whole new company and then start working in a place called Morkel. That's one of the projects. So then I found myself actually more in, not quantity surveying, but more in economic and social development. That's where myself and Kelly also worked together. So myself and an old colleague of mine started the company. And I'm telling you everything just like started happening like this. We got funding left, right, center. And that's now starting end of 2021, 2022, which was last year. So the Lord really provided. So Jarrod, to answer your question, we literally prayed and had plans set up, like, as in, this is what I want to become or do. When I die, this is what I want people to say, about who Caleb was, who Bright was, kind of like working with the Indian mind.
Yeah.
So we wrote down all those plans. But then a couple of months after that, it's as if the Lord just started taking us on a whole journey. And you start questioning, Lord, is this where you want me to be? Or, yeah. Then fast forward to Levi. That's our boy's name is called Levi. And how do I see, like the question you asked, how do I see the plans that we had and versus where we are now, right now? All I can say, man, is that we are literally trusting God all the way. Because it seems as if you can write down the plans that you want, but the journey doesn't look as clear cut as the plans that you wrote down. So sometimes God will take you through the development space and then again get to the main thing that you spoke about.
Yeah.
Because the creating of time is really spending time more in ministry. That's really where our hearts are, what we want to do. So, looking at Levi, being a new dad and all that, I must say that it's still a journey of just trusting God all the way. I still believe that whatever God has purposed us to do, we'll accomplish that. But how it looks like, the journey, but we aren't certain. We just, trusting God in faith and saying, Lord, we obey whatever you say, and then we follow you. Whatever it is, what it tells us, we'll do that. Levi is a major blessing. It's been a journey of learning how to navigate to the newborn, and as well as through all the mothers will know what the ladies go through.
Ladies, what do you go through? A lot.
A lot.
I'm getting like a lot.
So even in that, we still on the same course, because what we seek for is necessarily not the highlights of, we receive so much funding, this is happening in our lives. It's kind of like, God, our desire is to accomplish whatever you've placed in our hearts, whatever you desire to happen, that's what we want to do. So really following His purpose, listening to Him, whatever He says, that's really what we want to follow. So I think the best scripture that we also look at, and specifically me, is it's Jeremiah 1 verses 5, that before I formed you in the womb, I knew you before you were born, I've set you apart, and I appointed you to be a prophet unto the nations. That's what He told Jeremiah. So for us, really, Lord, whatever you've set us apart for, whatever you appointed us for, that's what we're going to chase. And so we are on the journey. It looks a little bit different, but also, we're on the journey.
That's beautiful, yeah. And again, congratulations
Thank you.
on the arrival of Levi. That's a life-changing. It's a singular event that just flips everything on its head. And the world, as you know, will know against us and something new. Yes. And it's an incredible covenant. It's very well done. Would you mind just giving the mic over to Shireen? Shireen Bright mentioned a couple of things there. And some of those things I want to pull back to you. One of them particularly is about being set apart. As a follower of Christ, as a follower of Christ, we have all been set apart to fulfill His mandate in a way that is unique in our gifting. And you occupy a very unique space in me. You coined the phrase mad scientist earlier, and eclectic earlier. So, are you an eclectic mad scientist, or are you an eclectic person who's also a mad scientist? Because the one sounds like you experiment in the kitchen, and the other one sounds like you're concocting things to combat severe illnesses in waste. Accessing both parts of your mind and of your being in that way is rather unique. There aren't many people who celebrate the analytical sphere as well as the creative sphere of equal proportions. How is your journey been navigating that, knowing that God has a plan for you, And what has it done in moments when it felt like you were not leading?
Okay. So I think from a young age, I've always been seeking something. Okay. I always felt alone in my thoughts. So I've been a deep thinker from a very young age. And I've been quite curious from a very young age. And always asking questions, right? And I think that curiosity that somehow made me into science. Okay, that's how I arrived there. I think in terms of dance, it was so funny how I found out that God was moving through my body. I was actually at a dance theater called Jazz or Dance Theater, and I was like 15. And I was dancing, and one of the directors was sitting on the floor, and he was like, he ran out and pulled the co-director and said, "Come watch this girl." And they were watching me, and they're like, "We have danced before," and I'm like, in my lounge. I trained myself. You know, and they found it quite amusing, but they were like, "There's something on that's not on a lot of people here." And I was like, "Oh," but I knew it was God. And I knew somehow that was like confirmation I'm going to end up doing ministry somehow. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew there was something on my life that was beyond me. Yeah? So I knew there was that. I think in terms of just like being set apart, I've achieved so much as a scientist within a very short period of time. And being a 35-year-old woman of color in science, having achieved what I've achieved, people would say I'm an outlier.
Right.
They would say it. They've said it online so many times, and I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. But I also understand why now I am actually an outlier. It's the spiritual stance that I've taken. You know, I think it's just the way I even approach science has made me an outlier, has made me somewhat unique, because people won't know that, like, they're like, "Oh, Shireen, your data is so great. You've got such great data." But what they don't know is when they go home and all the lights are switched off, I clean the lab like a janitor. So what I'm saying is that I've almost become like approached or have an attitude of servitude to the apparatus that I need in order to become successful. I pray before I culture cells because I know that I can't grow those cells. I can manipulate the environment in the right medium and the right supplements so the cells that I'm studying can grow, but God can only make them grow. So I know I'm supposed to pray in order for that experiment to be successful. Then there was some beautiful situation that happened. I was actually sitting in front of an electron microscope, right? Now this huge microscope that allows you to look at things at high resolution, like small nano-sized structures. Looking at them like, oh my God. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm seeing all these little bubbles, and I'm like, God, where are you? What am I supposed to discover? Give me your eyes, you know? And the most beautiful thing that happened over there was like, I was looking at all these little bubbles, and in the midst of those bubbles, I see this huge vesicle in the shape of a heart. And I burst out crying, and I'm like, God is humanist, but he's also telling me I'm here. I'm right here between the vesicles. Just look. You know? So I had this very comical relationship with God, but it's also just like everything I do is a play. Everything I do is a play. Every award I've ever achieved, 4 years before the time, I'm praying to God, I'm asking you, let me embody it before it even happens. So by the time it happens, it was you. It was you. It was you. And so in that sense, yeah, I'm probably an outlier. Because it's not me, it's actually God.
Right.
I'm allowing God. But that was the question. What's the second?
The second half was when those accolades and you pray to God and He doesn't answer the call immediately, but 4 years later, there's a time you
Yeah.
that passes.
Yeah.
And it feels like you forsake it.
Source.
How do you view that as not leading, or how do you view that as this is just a waiting period? This isn't failure. This isn't the final destination. This is just a season.
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of like storming of ego that has to happen in that time. Because you can win a lot, you can be winning, and like maybe a lot of awards coming, and you can forget about God, okay? And so for me, it was just like I can look at these accolades were winning in two ways. I can look at it as okay, I've excelled. There's a place of lack I didn't have, and now I have that award. I beat a few people, or it could be I didn't get this yet, what's the lesson in here? Okay, so that could also be a win. And so it was having to take that stance, like, what are the little lessons I have to learn? Okay, in order for me to achieve the main aim. So the little wins and the little lessons, whether they were losses, supposed losses, the little losses, they were all these little objectives
Right.
in order to eventually achieve.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
I hear that.
yeah.
I hear that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Interact as possible. On that note, Michelle, these little losses, these objectives, these learning milestones that we can overcome and comprehend and sometimes embody, those things are critical on our part. And you mentioned something quite pertinent earlier. In fact, you mentioned two things that really struck me. One was that you went through a process of stripping. And two was that you didn't make room for something new. And during that process, there's a lot of internal change, there's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of self-doubt, you know, particularly in and around the time that you were working in the heat of the everybody was panic stricken, everybody was hyperventilating about everything. How did God help me to want to better phrase, keep it all together during that time, so that we could see the season of winning, the season of discovering your husband, the season of bringing a new life into this world? How did He help you kind of transition through that space?
Well, I think most of the time, or often, God doesn't help you to keep it all together. He lets you fall apart, but then He needs you there.
Right.
Because when you fall apart, then you've come to the end of yourself. And then you're like, whoa, I actually know nothing.
Yeah.
And that happened to me when I was in Australia. I was incredibly lonely, missing my family. You know, borders were closed, and I know things were intense here in South Africa, but Australia, there's a different level of compliance that is not
It's called
seen.
paranoia.
Yeah. That's not really seen in South Africa people. It's like people always want to fight, you know, they always want to question everything. Where Australia, it's like, well, government said that, we must do it. So anyway, I was very lonely, and I woke up one night in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., incredibly fearful and anxious and doubting a lot and just crying. And I lay down, I got out of my bed and I went and I kneeled on the floor next to my bed and I just laid it all before the throne, and God met me there. And then He asked me, He's like, okay, you ready to give it over to me now? And then that was the start of the journey. So I think God often allows you to come to the end of yourself, and you have to come to the end of yourself to really allow Him to do what He needs to do in your life. And I think that's part of, that's the free will. That's the free will, because it's like, God, why don't you just intervene? And He says, well, I love you too much. I have to let you kind of go there, but I'm there underneath, like a safety net to meet you and to stop you from, going into destruction. But, and it's not, I think we fail all the time in our life. It's not just one time, it's many, many, many times. And God allows us to go through that. But the key question you mentioned, Shireen, is what do I need to learn in this? And when you pause and you ask the Lord that He is so faithful to reveal something to you that shows you that even if that thing you're praying for, you really desire, and it's God's desire for you, you're not ready for it yet. Because you have to show yourself approved. God needs to be able to entrust you with that thing, because He knows if He gives it to you now, you're not approved yet to handle it, and that gift that's meant to bless you will actually lead to your downfall. You know what I mean? So, and that's the journey often in life, and that's really important, because at the end of it, God is so much more concerned with your salvation and you becoming in His image, looking like Him, than about your happiness or about your prosperity here on earth. And nothing all of that. So Does that answer the question?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Quite beautifully. Thank you very, very much for that. Right up to that then. Sure. Yeah, that is very nice. Michelle mentioned that you need to find yourself at the end of yourself
Yeah.
through the power of grace. You know? And you being in the ministry and a business owner, you walk a very delicate line. You know, and one worldview is about rampant capitalism and enormous profit margins, and the other one is literally a salvation. From your perspective, do you believe that we have, as a society, distorted this thing called winning? You know, we see these hashtags all around saying winning in life, move, win, never stop, you know, win until you drop. Like those type of things, they flooding the gateways, they flooding social media. What impact, so one, are we distorting that? And two, what impact do you think that will have on the next generation of people, of Christians, of faith believers that are coming through the ranks? What's our responsibility there?
Sure, Jarrod. It's a big question. Once again, I think, Jarrod, from my perspective, when one says winning at life, it's more of a personal perspective. So depending on what you see, like you've asked us, for example, like what do you see as success or winning?
Yeah.
For example, but the question is, are we distorting that?
Yeah.
You know?
Culture.
Yeah. I think in some sense it's encouraging for some to be able, or be honest and say that, or for some to know that something is actually making.
Yeah.
If you make it, you're winning at life. I'd like to find out, well, what are you winning at? You know? Maybe I can kind of emulate the same thing. So it can be encouraging in a sense. But on another sense, I think that it can be distorting if you only say it's winning at life without actually explaining what you've been through. Because really people learn through stories, through the experiences of other people, even maybe the plans that you made to get through to that winning point, whatever the winning might be.
Yeah.
I think if that is not there, then I think yes, definitely will be distorting that, especially on social media. Because social media is only like it's a 5-second clip that you see of somebody saying something, or one post that you see, and you can try to deduct a lot of things from it. Other one, I think that would be distorting on my end, except that little short thing is basically if people don't, if it just becomes a thing to say.
Right.
Yeah, because when it is, sorry, I'm going to go into Afrikaans, sorry, English, because if it's just like a slogan that you say, winning in life, just to try to fit in, then I think then we're just wasting people's time on that. Then second question.
What's our role?
What's our role?
If we are distorting as a culture, what is our role?
Yeah.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah, I think to be able to share your story, to be able to, that's our role as believers. Because I firmly believe I've learned quite a lot from my mentors in how they've won in life. And I'm trying to, by the grace of God, I'm saying to emulate to become like they become, but at least learn out of their experiences in life, even mistakes as well.
Yeah.
Because there's that you can also learn quite a lot from them. I think the best I would actually say as a believer is to be able to share your story authentically, and also to understand that this whole thing of life, even the winning, is actually just grace.
Right.
Like there's no, there is the effort that you put in as a human being, but the truth, the results of it doesn't lie in our hands. And even if you get the result of whatever it is that you've put in, it can also mislead you. Like Michelle was just mentioning as well. Both of you guys. is that you might think that, hey, this is a great thing for you, but it might just lead you away from Christ. For me as a believer, yes, our role is definitely to say that yes, the winning, but then the story behind it, and as well as understanding that there's grace is the thing that carries you. And can I just share one little story?
Absolutely.
If you find, I lost my mother, my biological mother, when I was like 2 years old. So, I mean, I barely know. I don't even know how my mother looks like, or what you would experience with your mom, for example. Then for years, actually, I walked around with a thing like, if something happens in my life, and I would say, but if my mother was here, things would have been better, right?
Right.
I think things would have been different. Then one day, normal service, church, worshiping stuff, and I asked God, why did you take my mother away when I was young? And I literally cried. And the Lord said, but I love you, and I'll never leave you. And that, Jarrod, really set me free from trying to please people, trying to focus on, because I was an athlete as well. Like, if I run the fastest time, if, I'm known at school, I feel great about life. But if maybe that day I come second in 100-meter race, it's like, well, I don't feel so great about my life anymore. But the Lord set me free with understanding that He loves me, never leave me, never forsake me. The second thing on top of that is that He then showed me how He literally, because I used to play rugby in athletics, so I got a bursary when I was in school. When I went to go study, I got another bursary to study, and my job was secure already. So it's almost as if my life path was like set out already. But even in all that, I worked hard. But in all that, I could just see the grace of God working through. So when one comes and says, but because I can tell you, yes, we started 2 businesses in 2021, can give you all this beautiful stuff, but behind all that, literally the grace of God. And that's it. The best way to say that is the undeserved favor of God, because you don't deserve it. So are we distorting to ask me that question? I would say if you don't tell the full story, then definitely I think there's be a misconception about doing it. But it's our responsibility to share the grace of God, what God has done, whether good or bad. That's my say. You want more?
That's why I'm looking at you, man. What a powerful testimony. And it sets up what I'm about to ask Shireen quite beautifully, because what you're talking about is hindsight and being able to identify it through hindsight. And so, Shireen, with your success and achievements and all the things that you experienced in life, do you believe that we only truly see grace? We only truly see the winning of Christ in hindsight?
No.
Please qualify.
I think there's a lot better to what you said with that. So yeah, I agree with you in that sense that it's always the grace of God. But I think you can actively experience the grace of God, right? And there's a certain amount of peace that you need to have in order to do that. And that's difficult, actually. I feel like that's become the anthem of my just trying to find peace. And actually finding peace is quite difficult because you have to fight off so much distraction, so much comparison, so much deficit, so much lack in your life in order to really locate God in the different parts of your life. So for me, like the hallmark, is my go-to word, the hallmark of success here is just like finding peace every moment of every day. Because when I find peace at every moment, in my day, I can locate God in that moment. And then I can feel the presence of God in that moment. And when I have that, I can walk in conviction. Then I'll know what to say. I'll know how to show up. I'll know how to present myself. I'll with confidence apply for whatever I need to apply for. It's a mad faith act, but because there's so much peace dawning on it, you can almost feel the grace of God walking with you actively in that sense. And so for me, it's like, yes, I agree with you, but I also feel like you can experience that, like in the now.
In real time.
in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's perfect. That's perfect. Last question for you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Can you possibly answer? Yeah. So this is the last question before we move into the Q&A. For those people sitting on the fence, wherever they are, in the audience, on YouTube, in 2 years from now, 10 years from now, they're sitting on the fence and they're like, this thing isn't working for me. Or this life plan that I had isn't working. I don't know what else to do. Do I need to go to another company? Do I need to start a family? Do I need to get another accolade? Do I need to part up sitting down to be this? What is the thing that I need to do? What was it encouragement, advice, hope, love, can you be doing in that moment? When they feel like I'm right at the end of my tether, and there is no more for you.
I think, man, that's such a great place to be in. First of all, it's not a bad place. It's a great place to be in because, like I said earlier, that's where you come to the end of yourself, and that's where God can really move powerfully. And I think if we just look at scripture, so many great people of God, that's exactly where the Lord met them. And the first example is King David, right after he failed and he stripped naked before the Lord in grief because God had confronted him about his sin. And that's where God himself met him and said, well, now, because David started getting into, I don't want to say, but full of himself as king, and he let the power get to him and he wasn't taking up his responsibility, and he kind of lost that first love of Jesus. And that led him to a path of destruction, but God still, grace was there, and he met him even at the height of unbelievable sin and betrayal that David had committed. And that's exactly where God met him. And that was at the end of himself. And you see a different stance of humility, even through the songs that David wrote afterwards, because, he looked back and he thought, oh, wow, this is really just for the King of Glory and not for me. So for anyone that's sitting in that place in their life, I would say, be encouraged because Jesus is there with you. And all you really need to do is just sit in peace and ask him. And this is something my husband really encourages me a lot because I am, I'm a doer and I live by the calendar and our Google calendars full all the time. And if it's not in the calendar, we're not going to do it. Not that there's not room for impulsivity. It's not that. It's just life gets really busy, but you need to plan. And often you get wrapped up in the day-to-day and this is what we need to do. And it's really hard to meet God in all those moments because you're so full of these things that you need to do. But my husband encourages me a lot and he always reminds me just to be still because where God is going to move you, he never leads you into the decision with fearful urgency. That's not the voice of the Lord, that's the enemy. If God is going to lead you somewhere, it's always be still and know that I am God, and he leads you with peace into a decision. But when you're feeling that anxiety to make a decision quickly, otherwise, if you don't do that decision, then it's going to lead to all destruction or this failure or that failure and lose this opportunity, then that's often not the Lord. And that's where you make mistakes in terms of it's driven by fear and anxiety, and God's perfect love casts that all out. So for anyone that's really come to the end of themselves and they're really questioning what to do next, it's just to be still, know that he is God, worship him, and he will reveal himself to you because that's who he is. And that's what his desire is to do, always. Yeah.
Thank you, that was beautiful. Guys, it's over to you now. Do we have any questions from the floor? I see people are looking at your notes, so I'm very no questions to be focused on. Oh, maybe they have a question.
So, you sit on that board in between the wall and us. financing, the world defines success as money and bonds, businesses, and stuff. And then that puts you on a completely different path. So that will define that thin line between what the world wants and the success and the practice and the governance.
I'm still figuring that out. Maybe let me say this. I think the story that I mentioned right in the beginning to say, the previous company that I used to work for, it's actually, we had to explain that properly. I used to work for South African National Parks. Most people know sandparks, Table Mountain and all that. So I used to be a quantity surveyor with them, so work out customer buildings and so forth. Used to work all over the country. So then I pivoted into development, meaning like economic and social development. So what in fact happened, I won't go into that, was that I was actually a bit fed up with quantity surveying. So I'm traveling all over South Africa, beautiful, and then I was the youth pastor as well in church, and I love being the youth pastor. Then I one day decided, I think I need to see somebody, to maybe just go bounce off my thoughts with some other guy. Then I met up with this mentor, and then we went through this whole questionnaire that kind of assists you to really find or write down your purpose statement. Then what came out of it was basically that I want to make disciples through using the vehicle of entrepreneurship, and I think business development is one of the vehicles I want to use. But the main thing is actually what I got to. It's been able to go to a place and then be able to disciple, preach the gospel, but also with that be able to do other things as well that are needed in the community. That's where entrepreneurship and business development comes in. To make a long story short, somebody actually gave me a call that I met through some conferences that I've been to. And he said, "Right, you want to come join my company?" And literally, that was the whole call. And what they did was this economic development. So after asking God, getting peace about it, I decided I'm going to not jump ship, but go over to this. Because I believe now I'm getting aligned to what God has placed in my heart. So that's what the real deal was. So fast forward to what I was explaining earlier, saying that, the company closed down. That same company, the same year that I went over, that's when COVID hit. And in, COVID hit in 2020, and 2021, the following year, the company then closed down. So I was forced to go into business, but the whole crux of it was that it wasn't necessarily the business. It's more to do with, I actually want to spend more time working for the Lord, creating more time, whatever it might be, whether it's now discipling people, whether it's outreaches, whatever it might be. So the business really came in as a means of providing, not having to, work for somebody in terms of 8 to 5, 8 to 5 job. So that's really where it came in. But now being in it, I then also realized that, because I'm still in ministry and now in business, is that it's very difficult. I'll be very honest. It's very difficult to have that fine line, because we started the business, and Kelly knows, we had a project in Namibia working for the UN World Food Program. It requires like almost 100% of your time. But at the same time, what I'm realizing more and more is that, what creates time is actually your systems. What creates time is having the right people in the right places. Because when you have those things in order, then definitely be able to create time. So there comes a point where you will have to focus on that, because you have to focus on that to get that business running and where it doesn't need you. And then again, you can actually create time for yourself to work on the other things. So that's really where I am at this stage, that it is difficult, but I do believe the wisdom out of it, like Solomon also did. Solomon didn't go build the temple himself. He got, for example, Hiram, or one of the neighboring countries, to send their labor force to do, the guys that were skilled in their jobs, do whatever they were supposed to do. So with that, I find wisdom in it, like when you have your things in order, your systems, your strategy in order, then it makes it more easier to be able to focus on really, if I say really what the Lord has called you for, that's also still part of it, but really working on the core thing. Yeah, so that's the follow-up question.
I mean, there was like one thing like first about and then it's creative. That is just something that I would do.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about you say, you get it out. I've been asking myself lately, have I got too many things on the go? Because I like this, this, Jarrod mirrors, I'm all over the place. And I just kind of felt that maybe I should just let some stuff go and then focus on, but you're doing it all, so how do you do it?
I think I've always felt that I could do it. And it's a bit unrealistic though, you know, it's been a bit unrealistic and I've cracked under pressure a few times because there's only so much hours in a day. And so you can't actually do it all. But you kind of have to understand or gauge the season of your life that you're in, right? Some stuff will take priority over other things, but only you can, with conversation with God and just being quiet in God's presence and really gauge like what can be done now, or what do you want me to do now? Because there was a couple of years where the dance took preference, and I would be twirling in the lab. That's how bad it was. And my supervisor would come back and be like, "Please get off the stage and focus on your research." But I knew that wasn't really the priority. And so it's just about juggling like what takes priority in what season of your life, and then just be tender on yourself. Like, I can't do this now. I have to park this now, and then celebrate what you can do. So it's a balance between being tender on yourself about what cannot be done, and then also celebrating what needs to be done now. You know, because if you don't celebrate that, you just forfeit a really great opportunity to encounter others or to be an impact will make an impact on someone else's life. And so I think at some point they were balancing each other out, the creativity and the technical, sciencey me. And I always pray this one prayer like, God, whatever I'm doing, whatever I've plugged myself into now, be it dance ministry, if this is what you want me to do, then I'm going to prepare as much as I can here because I love it, it's my passion. But help me set healthy boundaries so that I don't overdo it, okay? And not drain myself and then forget that you are the source here, okay? And so I would often say, God, I'm going to do what I need to do here. I know I want to make an impact on the human spirit I want you to make an impact on the human spirit through my life. I'm going to show up here. If it's from you, bless it. If it's not, block it. Science, the same thing. I'm going to do what I need to do in the research. This is the time you've given me. If an opportunity or a study or whatever is from you, if you need me to say something through a scientific publication, if it's from you, bless it. If it's not, block it. And then I must just make peace with that. So I pray that God, pray all the time. If I walk into a new role and I'm like, God, is this job from you? If it's from you, bless it. Open the portal. If it's not, block it. Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes. I'll come to you.
This question is for anybody. I know we've been talking about winning, but what about when you don't win? How do you view the failures, and where do you find your motivation to either make peace with the failure or pursue it again?
I'm going to share something that my pastor shared with us this morning, which I thought was really powerful. And he said, the way that you determine a successful life is your ability to see yourself and others through God's perspective, which is incredibly difficult to do because from every experience that we've had right from the womb up until this present moment, It's been the world and everyone around us trying to shape our perspective in our mind about who we are, who other people are, our relationship with each other, and the greater world around us. And it's so distorted to God's perspective, it really is. So I know often you can look at yourself and instead of seeing yourself for who you are, you've got your parents' ideas on you, or you've got that past relationships voice in your mind, or you've got that experience with a professor or a teacher that said something to you when you were maybe 4 years old and you're not really that consciously aware of it, but it's driving your behavior, it's driving your perspective. And that's part of our process and our work as a Christian is not just to be delivered from whatever, whatever hurts or things that impact us, but it's also to renew our mind and to sanctify our mind. And that's the process of the walk. So I think with encountering failure is to ask God very clearly, well, Lord, show me who you see me, how you see me now, and remind me of who I am, because who I am is definitely not determined by this. And it's not determined by anything, it's determined by you and your love for me. And that's really hard. And that's the challenge because, and I'll speak from my own perspective, I can feel that peace. And then 5 minutes later, the enemy attacks with a thought again, and then you have to be really stubborn and you have to declare it and you have to stand on it regardless of how you feel it, because he's going to definitely, he did this with Jesus, right? In the desert. He was calling the Son of God a failure. If you really are the Son of God, and he was doing that through the Pharisees all the time. If he was really the Son of God, he would just let himself down with the cross and not die. So he's calling Jesus a failure as he's doing the greatest thing for all of that, like humanity of all time. So, that's definitely ask God for his perspective over yourself and over the situation.
Yes, sir. Yes. I was thinking about the scripture, Romans 8, verse 28, right? Which says all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And I think sometimes the purpose isn't to win. And it's for God's purpose to prevail. And sometimes you get taken out of that equation. Sometimes you don't get acknowledged or edified and nothing. But God's purpose prevailed. And that was the win. And so for me, I love by that, because at the end of the day, it's like, I'm using my train of thought here. But I think if God's purpose prevails and that scripture prevails, you literally are living an other-centered life. That's a win again. When you we're called to live other-centered lives. We're not called to be navel gazers or self-centered, but other-centered. And other-centered is being in relationship with others. And in that way, the impact happens. So for me, it's Romans 8, verse 28 thing. Yeah, it's not a me thing. Because by the time we get to heaven, I'm sure God's not going to say, so how many wins did you have? No. He's going to ask you, how many people have been transformed? I think. How many people have been enlightened? How many people have been awakened? How many people are now aware of me because of your life? That's a win. Yeah.
Any more from the floor? I'm going to myself see you now. Okay.
Yeah. I think this is so powerful. And I also, one of the things that in resilience through faith is that there is boldness in our vulnerability. And often we forget that. And so I just really want to say thank you. Guys, weren't they amazing? And I just so much nuggets. So much good nuggets. And I just really want to say thank you for your boldness today, for sharing. I don't think it's always easy to share, especially the not so nice seasons in our lives. But like what I just saying in terms of just how important it is to share your story so that it can be authentic. And I think that's exactly what all three of you did. So thank you so much for saying yes and for sharing your stories. Yeah.